believe we should be going. All right, all right, all right.
Should be on.
All right.
Yep.
Welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Robb O'Day, and we are on location in Kelowna today with Josh Tapp, a multi-instrumentalist from Kelowna, BC. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Good to be here.
It's good to have you.
Yeah.
Tell me and everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
All right. My name's Josh. I come from the other side of Canada in Ontario, but moved out to BC about 10 years ago. I've been doing music for probably 18 years, I think now, since I got my first couple guitars. And yeah, I've been loving it ever since.
Music is a great escape, and you've managed to work your way into some of the most, I guess, well-known bands in the Okanagan.
Mm-hmm.
And you've worked alongside many bands that many people that we associate with look as the greats at this point. So you're from Ontario, and in your time as a musician in Ontario, how was that? How did the development from being a bedroom guitar player evolve into becoming basically a musician who works with multi-bands?
Yeah.
Like, you've gone on tour with other bands, and
Definitely.
so tell us basically the history of how you started and got to here.
Well, I think it was like 15th birthday. My mom got me an acoustic. My dad got me an electric. Nothing crazy, but starting points. I wanted to do covers because I had seen that like YouTube was kind of just coming out and people were putting videos on there and blowing up and all that. So I wanted to be like, yo, I can do this too. Challenge myself to learn some stuff. Acoustic, I was never really the greatest at. Like, I got the chords nice and easy, but even getting into high school, like I did way better just learning tabs and such, ultimate guitar and all that. And yeah, I actually, my first band I played bass in. I never actually owned a bass, but the gear was always like supplied by a friend or someone in the bands, and I was like, yeah, like, you guys need a bass player, I'm your guy, and it was fun. Did some Battle of the Bands with the first band I was in. We were called For What's Upon Us. Just kind of like a punk band, really. Nothing crazy, it was all just for fun, but we definitely had some good shows. Played open for bands like Abandon All Ships and Texas in July and like some pretty big names, so that was always good too. Even just having fun with it and then being able to make it like an actual thing, playing actual shows was good. After that though, one band practice, we were all kind of waiting for everyone to show up, and some of the band members and I decided to switch instruments and just kind of mess around, see what would happen. So I got behind the kit and started trying to like play, and it wasn't that bad. So, I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. So I figured, maybe I can keep trying this and see where that goes. So got into a band with some friends in high school called Depths. So I played drums for them for a bit, and then I played drums for a band called Death Sentence, which was my last band I was in before moving out to BC. That band, we played lots of shows. Probably the most fun band I've ever been in. Actually, it was just like a dirty southern hardcore, and that's what I'm about. I like that.
That's funny, especially being from the north, doing southern hardcore. That's kind of entertaining.
Yeah, the dirty south. We really liked, in our area even, was a band called Dead and Divine, and we just loved them. And yeah, learned one of their songs to do was a cover for live shows, and always had fun with that. And then also before moving out, I got back on the bass for a band called Skylines. They're super like proggy, pretty fun too. Just a bunch of really good dudes, so super talented. That was fun stuff.
Ontario's music scene is probably, well, it has to be a lot more diverse and built up, being one of the main area of Canada.
Yeah, when tours are coming, they're definitely going to hit Ontario.
Yeah, you usually see two places if it's a North American tour and they're coming through Canada.
Yeah.
So Ontario and Vancouver, and that's basically it.
Maybe up into Montreal sometimes.
Yeah, maybe. So, Ontario scene, what was your biggest struggle as a emerging artist?
Well, back then, things were a little different with shows, in the sense that you kind of, like, if you couldn't really sell tickets, like, promoters might not really consider you guys for a show. So, we busted our butts, like, crazy for all the shows we played. I got to give a hats off to Brandon Eady. He's one of the main promoters from Ontario, especially in London. Still doing shows to this day, and he gave us a lot of chances, so... Yeah, we sold lots and lots of tickets and we're posting on everywhere on Facebook and meeting people downtown or here or there just to try and get on that bill. And as soon as we hit, usually it's like if you can sell 30 tickets, like you're on, like you're good to go. So doing that was a challenge, but it made them see that we really wanted it. So
I think that's the hardest thing too, because I kind of remember those days. It wasn't really so big here with the having to sell tickets because it was little bands putting on shows. So it was just every one of the bands trying to hustle their friends' tickets versus a promoter. But it's definitely changed. I've noticed, especially as a musician nowadays versus being ones who grew up. Like we grew up with that tons of posters and postering everywhere, and there was no social media downtown. And it's weird to see how, like, as musicians nowadays, you have to have a solid social media following.
Yeah, and a big connection.
To even get the music heard. Before, it was just, you had to have a cool logo that people wanted to see. That looks cool.
You gotta have merch that has a massive...
Yeah, right? So, the times have changed, but I've always been interested in the difference between the scenes across Canada, because the West Coast and the East Coast definitely have two different style of scenes.
Absolutely.
Sounds. So it's kind of cool to see, is your style based around an Ontario sound that's developed a BC sound, or are you still very, in your mind, Ontario?
No, I'd say it's the first option. Like, out here is surprisingly more heavy oriented than in Ontario. Ontario is more just like a hardcore scene. Even if you've got like your like death metal bands, there's still that crazy underlying hardcore influence to their sound. And you can hear it for sure. Yeah, everyone wants to be Norma Jean.
Yeah.
And for good reason too, right? Like they're great. So out here, a lot heavier. The bands that I've been in out here have been heavier as well, but favorite genre always has been, always will be, like metalcore with the southern influence to it. Just, it's all I'm about. Latin breakdowns, so yeah, can't have one without the other.
It's very true, and I think that being an artist and kind of having different life experiences will change what you write, the sounds, the feels that you have. And I find, like, with guitar, it's a lot more freeing to be able to do that.
Yep.
You can express emotion through that, as where with drums, a lot of people hear a metal drummer and just think, oh, he's just hitting things really hard and fast. As a drummer, because starting off as a guitar player, bassist, you've naturally been percussive.
Yeah, understanding the beat.
Yeah, and watching you drum is almost intimidating because you're so established and your craft is so well done, and you look like you're bored doing it most of the time because you're so just relaxed. And how long has it taken you to develop that ability to be comfortable while playing extremely intricate, fast, and hard drum beats?
Yeah, Planetkiller is still, even to this day, is not an easy task. If ever I look like I'm relaxed, I'm just in the head listening to the click track, just super focused, always concentrated. Still having a great time doing it, but the technical aspect and the challenge of like playing those songs is, I think, is what makes that at least really fun. Yeah, it's still a struggle for some of the new stuff. Alex writes some super intricate things for me to play, so when I come in and I'm like, that's inhuman. let me tone this down a little bit. I don't have that many arms, but
Yeah.
no, it's good fun. It's good fun. I like the challenge.
Have you ever played anything other than metal and heavy? Like, have you ever done like indie bands or?
Sort of. So, a couple years back, I worked with a buddy, and he was doing a lot of acoustic stuff, but we kind of wanted to start something like thrice sounding. Unfortunately, he had to move to Alberta, so that didn't go anywhere, but that was the closest I've ever got to just like drumming for something kind of like alternative rock style, and really enjoyed that. I'd love to do that, or even just like guitar forward or something.
Right. I often wonder what it's like, because I've played in many genres and done many different things, but like, sad to say I've never dedicated myself to a genre or a specific style, which is probably where my abilities lack, because I get to a certain point and I'm like, oh, my ADHD kicks in and I want to play something else. So,
Yeah.
but I like with drumming, I find that that's the perfect focus. Like that's where, even when I'm up behind a kit, that's where I feel most comfortable, even as a guitar player, because that's what I have to classify myself as. But
Just like doing metal.
yeah, because like as a drummer, it's just I feel like people just maybe don't fully understand what drumming could be because we're stuck in as the backbone of bands.
Yeah.
So
the metronome.
yeah, and what really like inspired me to want to be more of a drummer was artists like what is his name from Fever 333?
Okay, yeah.
The drummer. He does solo stuff. And
They're like the two-piece act, right?
yeah, they are now. I just can't remember their name. I'm blanking, but
That's really cool.
just to see like Annika Niles, for example, or Thomas Lang, like artists that you hear their name, you're gonna automatically assume, oh, it's a singer-songwriter, and then you see that they're hiding behind a kit, and they're playing, and it's not just playing drums, like just basic backline. They're writing songs
like
with
all
drums.
Over the kit. Yeah.
It blew my mind to the point where I was like, this should be more brought in to other genres versus just being like a drummer's music, because these artists are incredible. And where I'm leading to is, do you think that you'd ever do like a Josh Tapp album EP that was not strictly metal but had heavy influence with a bunch of different artists, and then just put that out, but it was being worked around your drums versus you working around the melodies?
Okay. So there are a plethora of unfinished songs that I have from over the years. And as I, got better and better at playing drums, my ability to write the drums in either like tabs or a music program also kind of came with that as well. So I have definitely considered the idea of doing like a self EP with a couple different genres, just to kind of show that I can do more than just really crazy fast metal stuff, or also more than just like punk. Some metalcore stuff in there as well, and like I was saying, I would like to do like a alternative track as well, something thrice like stuff like that. It would probably be the melody from the guitar would be like the main kind of center point for each of that though, but the drums would definitely, like, I'd throw my flavor in there for sure. In Death Sentence, that was the one time I think I played drums in a band where everything that was being written like was 100% just me. So I really got to like mess around with things and put the snare wherever I wanted and that kind of thing. So I would definitely consider it for sure.
Because I would love to see that, because I've heard your drumming, I've heard your singing, I've heard your guitar playing, and just to see an entire project that's just you with a couple featured artists, maybe some vocalists or a bass player here and there. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, bass players hit me up.
Right.
I don't have any software stuff for that, so I would definitely need some live ones for sure.
So back to Planetkiller. You guys just recently, I think it was last week.
Yeah, it was December 5th. We put out our third EP titled Violence.
How was the release?
Very good. The show, fantastic. We always have a great time. We had the boys in The Unending come out and play a show with us, and I think it was the third time we've played a show with them, and every single time it's just so good. So good. Their sound is evolving too. They got some new members, and yeah, it's really cool.
Funny enough, their new bass player is the one who recorded Storm the Empire's first song.
It's Jonathan
Hintz.
Yeah,
he's an amazing person.
Crazy.
The process, I know that it was a bit of a battle because one of your members is across Canada.
Yes.
So how was the whole writing process with it? Because I know that Alex does most of the writing with Planetkiller, but the writing, recording, and getting to release it, this build-up is finally complete. How was the process, and how do you feel now?
It's been a while since our last release. We were a little bit more patient with this one. I think it's maybe 2 or 3 years since the last one, but some of the songs we've had the whole time, and a couple others we just really wanted to kind of tweak and just see where we could go with it. And listening to the EP compared to our first two, you can tell that like we just said, we're just gonna try whatever feels right to us. Just throw some fun stuff in there, especially for the last track. In the middle, there's a little hidden gem of a sound. So that's fun. But yeah, with Noah in Ontario, sometimes he'll come out and we'll have him for a couple weeks or so, play some shows and do a little bit of writing. That was a bit of the process for that. He'd throw in a lot of great ideas too, like some of the lyric ideas before Breakdown were from Noah as well, so hats off to that. Noah's a great guy. We'd love to have him out here more often, but
yeah, I wish we could steal Noah back.
Yeah,
because he is good people.
Yeah, he's a good dude. But Alex does a lot of the writing for sure. Thor the vocalist, will come in and we'll just have like a little sit down write session, and he'll show us some of the ideas he's got, and we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, it's mostly Alex for PK. He's carrying us for sure.
We will be interviewing Alex as well, and I've got some of the same questions, because I definitely, you guys are some of the hardest working people with your craft, in the sense that you're always working on it, and there's, especially the style that you guys do, it's not like you can just bang it out song after song after song. Like it's A, super technical, B, extremely fast, and to master those parts to a place where you're comfortable to record it, and to have the location to record it, because you guys recorded it at home.
Yeah. So me and Alex do live together. He's got a studio room up there, and we do all of it there in house, and he'll mix and master and all that jazz. So coming from the first EP to the latest one, you can see the progression that he's made, and I think it's just getting better and better.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Is the journey of a musician is constantly evolving, and I find most musicians will want to be, especially here, want to be super, super heavy. And then they develop their style. Like right off the bat, we want to write the heaviest thing, fastest thing. But
come out strong.
And hard and swinging. But in reality, like the craft takes years for bands to mold to be able to write. So you usually wait 3 albums before you can hear the best of what a band can produce, right?
That's true.
And especially if there's bands that have like members who leave and different change-ups, and it's a weird connection. I always laugh and say it's like having 5 girlfriends or 5 boyfriends, right? Like 5 spouses
Yeah.
that you like it who had one baby. And like that baby is the band.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotion that comes with writing an album, with performing the songs and the build up.
Yeah.
That it really builds the bond which makes that music what it is. Because anyone can write riffs and songs and put them together and put them out.
Yeah.
But to have like an emotional standpoint behind a song that people are just like, wow.
Yeah, you just kind of feel it.
You feel it, and then that's the difference. And I think that bands are too quick to put music out sometimes because
True.
we got to get heard. We got to just work on your craft.
Keep going.
You know, just work on what you're doing, and getting out there will happen. Because if you jump the gun and put out really bad stuff, and then try and backtrack, it doesn't work so well.
No.
You know, like. And that I feel like we're guilty of that too in Storm the Empire, because we've had so many different avenues the band has gone. But as PK, now like with Planetkiller, are you guys already working on new music, or are you taking a break to focus on performing for a while?
Kind of half and half. We decided to just kind of chill out, see how this one goes. We have a show planned for, I believe, March in Vancouver is the next one we've got going. So until then, I know Alex is going to be really busy with other bands. He's recording and writing for a lot of other projects and stuff. So if there's definitely time in there, then we'll try and maybe hash out a couple ideas. But yeah, just kind of playing it by ear for now. And then maybe around spring, summertime, put a little bit more into it, and maybe have another release for the next year instead of 3 years. But yeah, we'll take our time for sure and see what happens.
I think that's what's best too, is taking your time on it. I mean, to an extent, you don't want to like be sitting on tracks forever as well, right?
Not as long as we did, but
but it definitely becomes like it's hard too, especially like when you're younger. You have all the time in the world. Like, you don't have families and jobs and spouses and all these like obligations. Do you find it hard to get away from adult life as like the whole group to get together, or just
that is the
be a
main
band?
issue, 100%. Like in high school, you know, everyone's pretty much got the same schedule, maybe a weekend job once or twice a week. You got a shift or something at, you know, McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot easier when we were younger just to find that day that, you know, once a week everyone could just get together and, you know, hash out some stuff and just hang out. But yeah, I'd love to get back to that point, but life's so busy for everyone, so it's tough.
I feel like, yeah, and that's like that's where I was kind of like earlier when talking about like the difference between back in the day,
Yeah, man.
being a musician versus now, is because it's not just getting together and writing music. You got to like schedule online posts,
Yeah,
and who's
try
going to
and
manage
figure
this,
out.
who's going to manage that, and that it becomes like a full-flung business that people don't get paid from. Like, it's for the love of the music at the end of the day, but realistically, when you've invested 20 years of your life behind it, it is for the passion, and you can see the passion in the progress of, if I was to show you some of my first songs to some of the songs we write now,
Yeah.
it's not the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
come a long way for sure.
I feel like it's almost like a photo album, but like an audio book of the progress. Like I find it entertaining to go back and listen to some of the first projects I've done, just to be like, wow, I was 14.
Just
That's a
coming up
good
with some
song,
crazy stuff,
right?
yeah.
But
I
find
even sent you some of my like old stuff from like 2010, 2012 when I was first getting into writing, and you're like, what?
yeah,
This
and
could have came out yesterday.
and it's kind of funny too, because like you always see the pop industry, they always seem to go for the youngest who are just learning their craft, and then years down the road they finally develop their artist, who they are.
Yeah.
So the first couple albums are just to be sold, at least in the pop industry. And I find that the metal industry used to be the same, but now you see older artists being picked up before younger bands. And it's because they've put in the time, they have that skill level.
Yeah, and they're still going, right?
And it's not just that they're still going, it's that they have that mastery of their craft. Because you wouldn't necessarily hire an apprentice to build you a house if he had just started.
Yeah, like day one.
Right? He doesn't have that mastery level yet.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I find that that change from we got to get the cream of the crop to these are the masters. It's been a slow progress, but we're finally getting to a place where like older musicians and bands that may have been around for 20 years are now getting huge.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see because it kind of gives everybody that hope that you're not too old.
Yeah.
And because that's one thing that like personally I struggle with constantly is that like I'm going to be 35. Am I too old to be in a band?
Yeah.
Well, no, but realistically, like, you got to chase your dream if that's your dream. It doesn't matter how old you are because you can see people who are in their 50s finally doing what they love and becoming successful.
Yep.
So with aspiring artists, like, I think they have almost a harder time now than we did.
Yeah, they have to put in like twice as much work.
If not more.
For sure.
And I think even to get like, we have a local band here they're underage, and I'm going to be trying to interview them. Free as the Fall, I believe.
Oh, Free as the Fall, yeah.
And it's amazing to see.
Yeah.
Right? Even Floodgate.
Yeah, I was going to say they're great.
Floodgate is incredible, and they hustle, and
super talented.
And that's the thing. They're talented. Like, you look at them and you're like, how do you guys not have 25 years experience? You're not even 25. It's because that's what they do.
That's the drive.
Right? They don't...
I think back too, like, there was a point when I was around that age where I was way better at guitar than I think I am now. Like, and
that's how I feel daily.
I put in the practice back then. Like, I put in the work. So
yeah.
That's my biggest tip is, like, if you want to hone your craft, you gotta keep practicing.
Yeah, it's definitely the hardest thing is to put that time aside to do your craft and to basically go about it. And I find that when I was younger, like I said, like I feel I was a better artist.
Yeah, definitely. Same.
Not necessarily with what I wrote, but my ability to play and learn faster and techniques. I was so into it because that's all I did.
Yeah, I gotta struggle to learn a riff a couple times, and then I'm like, okay, and on to the next part of it, and that kind of thing, where it's like I could just learn the whole song in high school like it was nothing.
Yeah, especially now, like, it definitely becomes like trying to learn stuff that you write versus stuff that I write versus stuff that Alex writes.
Yeah. Crazy.
You almost fall into like, this is your comfort zone after a certain point, and it's really hard to push past that.
Yeah.
Like, after a certain level of, like, it's almost like the gates of knowledge for music just like close, and you're like, I'm stuck where I'm at.
Yeah.
But it's like, even that, like, I pushed myself to try and learn sweep picking for a long time. Never really dedicated myself to figuring it out. Just kind of like, no, I'm not going to learn it. I can't figure it out. It's too difficult.
I think I got like 2 shapes, and that's about it.
Right?
Starting sweeps from Selkies from Between the Buried and Me, and that's really it.
And that's it. This is really hard. It takes skill. And then you watch, like we were talking about Floodgate, and those boys are just like...
all over the fretboard, yeah.
Everywhere.
Killing
and
it.
And it's... Kelowna's also got... We're all friends. Mm-hmm. All the bands are friends.
Yeah, that is nice.
But there's this, like... We're all pushing our music so hard.
Yeah.
And so much further that it's like the Kelowna music scene, I feel, in the next couple of years will blow up with the amount of bands that have the skill level that we have here. And with, I've said it before, with like Spirit Box being from the island and becoming one of the biggest bands in the last 5 years, the eyes are on BC and Alberta, because the West Coast has been hidden for what talent, because it's so underpopulated.
That's true.
Nobody comes through here. Kelowna's not on the Trans-Canada Highway, which is where most of the big bands will go if they're on tour.
Yeah.
So, like, Kelowna's kind of an off bracket. That's why Kamloops gets most of the big shows, because they're on it. So,
Yeah.
Kelowna, I find, is kind of like this hidden gem within the music scene. And because we're only 4 hours away from Vancouver, we blend with the Vancouver bands really
Yeah.
well, and we work really well with them, interchanging. Like, we bring them here, they bring us there.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I've been trying, like, over the years, I've tried to connect with bands from Ontario to get that cross
Yeah.
going, but it's just so hard to travel.
Yeah.
Because realistically, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, there's not really a lot of places to perform.
You don't hear a lot of shows there either.
Yeah, and
Even,
Alberta's
like,
got a
cross-Canada
handful.
tours.
Like, you can go to Ontario and tour
Just Ontario.
just Ontario.
Like 50 places, yeah.
But BC, it's like 3. Alberta's 4.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan's 2. Like, it's a very small
Little kind of...
bridge to go through.
Yeah.
And a lot of distance to get across without
Yeah, mountains.
hustling a ton of money at each show.
Yeah.
So I find that touring as a band is probably, like, the hardest thing, especially for, like, emerging bands. Like, if you don't have the money to invest in a van
Trailer
and
all
you know,
that.
mechanic to come with you, because I'm sure, like, I don't know how to work a van, you know, I'm not a mechanic, so you always got to bring somebody who knows a vehicle. There's just so many little things that go into it that I find, like, that's what really limits the BC Alberta music scene.
I think that's what scares a lot of bands too, away from doing like anything tour related in BC as well. It's just the travel and how far it is between each place compared to like Ontario or even like the States. There's just so many more options, and places aren't super far away, and you don't have to go through crazy amounts of like travel or like hazardous places. So
Yeah, especially like winter touring.
yeah, and everyone's like, "Meh."
No one wants to come here. Everyone, no one wants to come. Like, Vancouver to Kelowna, maybe, like Kamloops, but you don't want to go past that. Like, I went touring in April once. Scariest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Like, the scariest thing I've ever done. I've done some gnarly things in my life, but that was like, I'd never want to do that again. Like, a van full of gear, brakes are locking up, like, no.
Yeah, summertime's ideal.
Yeah, but
filled
then it's
in
hard
for,
because then you've got the festivals.
Yeah,
Like, it's a
that's
festival run
trying
through
to-
the summer
yeah,
now, right?
compete
So
with
it's like,
that too.
and then you have so many bands competing, trying to book in, that it's fun if you can get it in, like, your booking's done by like now to April, and then you're set for May to September.
Yeah, if you wait till March, everything's already booked up.
Yeah, so it's kind of
Absolutely.
like, you gotta be like on it. So like emerging bands, I find, have a hard time because they don't know those little things. Like, we need a book to give emerging artists, like, here you go, here's the dummy's guide to being a band.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of trial and error, and like, there's bands that I've opened up for that are like same age as my mom that are massive, and they still do the grind through BC.
Yeah.
And there's just, you got to do it right, and you got to time it out, and there's a lot of options too, funding wise,
Oh, definitely.
which is a nice thing. BC is very helpful with that, and there's a lot
Canada
of
even has like some grants for musicians and stuff too.
yeah. So as long as you can get into it and you understand the business behind it, which is the sad part, is it becomes less of a passion and more of a business. But if you love,
You got to find that half and half.
and that's the hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
in any medium you do, right? Especially like, while you were becoming a musician, what was your biggest struggle?
I guess it'd be like just having the time. Again, a lot easier when you're younger. Nowadays, that's the main struggle. It's just time for everyone. I always appreciate the challenge of learning new stuff though. So if it was like a new riff or something crazy behind the kit, then like have at her. But yeah, it's just making sure everyone's got that same time frame to be able to get it done, and then knowing kind of what each person wants from the band and being able to branch from that. Because if someone just really only wants to do it for fun, but then like a couple other bandmates are like, we want to go somewhere, then you gotta like make those kind of compromises and figure out where you can actually realistically get to and what amount of time it's going to take to get there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a big struggle for sure.
It is. And I think you also touched on a point, too, that was like, that's one of mine is, like, finding groups that are committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think that's why, like, being in many bands kind of leads you to shows you, like, who and what types you work well with musically.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can be friends with somebody, but I've been in many bands where I'm like, oh, we're friends, we should be in a band, and it doesn't work out musically, and you're kind of like, it's just like, it doesn't vibe. You need to have, I don't know, it's weird. There's just like, it's got to be a good vibe in a band. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's definitely like a challenge to keep that balance. Does PK ever find that like, because you guys are one member's far away, that it is like difficult to deal with that sometimes?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I've never been in a band where members are outsourced
Like
or like so
far.
far away, other than like when Dale was in England.
Yeah.
So I've never actually experienced like, because I know I can feel like that would be real hard.
It's tough. Like, we'd love to have, like I was saying too, when he is here, he's got some good ideas too. So especially for if we wanted to work on or write new stuff, like we'd love to have him here for it. So
Yeah.
like until then, it's kind of like up in the air, and
is it hard to write?
are pretty sparse without it too.
Yeah, that's the hard thing too, because you can write the music, but you got to practice it.
Exactly. Yeah, we most so just kind of like practice on our own, and then before a show comes up, we'll get together, have a couple practices, make sure we're all, feeling it all tight in the pocket, and then go from there. But yeah, having that like once a week or even once a month practice with all the members is pretty hard when he's a little far away.
But the thing is, you guys are such skilled musicians, each of you, that I find like you wouldn't know. You guys, like listening to you guys live and hearing you, it's like watching you play. You would not know that's how it is. But that's the majority of most bands, to be realistic.
Yeah, and this is Thor's first like, crazy metal band. Like,
was Thor in bands before?
No. Like, yeah, this is his first thing. Like, he's insane.
Wow.
And especially again from EP 1, 2, now 3, like his progression is just nuts. Like,
dude, he's one of my favorite vocalists locally, if not like within BC.
Yeah,
he's just so fun to watch. He looks like he's like, there's just like there's some points when he's screaming and you're like, he's about to snap. You can see it in his eyes. Just like,
yeah, you wouldn't expect him to be making the noises that he can make.
Yeah, I think that's a crazy thing too with vocalists. Like,
yeah, he's nuts.
Just dedicated vocalists are like some of the craziest. I do not understand how they do it. Like, I can sing, I can kind of scream, but like to do some of this, like the things that they do is like, it's that dedication. They sit there and they make weird noises all day, every day.
Yeah, I've been there.
Right? So it's funny.
Even with Alex too, like, little unknown fact, but I recorded the right guitar, rhythm guitar for the latest EP as well.
Oh, cool.
So I got an 8-string, decided to throw my stuff on there. Learning some of the stuff that Alex had like written for it, I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. Like, I can play some like pretty nuts stuff, but like just the way he writes is so crazy, just trying to figure that out. So yeah, he's also very talented behind the guitar there.
He's so humble too. Like, you didn't like,
definitely
could definitely wave his like musical like ego around if he wanted to, but he doesn't. And I think that's what makes, I love our scene, because a lot of the bands are like that. Nobody's like,
yeah, we want to help
we just want to have fun,
shine,
like,
bring everyone else out instead of just doing it for us. So
yeah, it's definitely like,
we're here to have fun with it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's all it is. So I find it entertaining sometimes that like, naturally you're gonna have like a competition with your friends, right? Like, you always want to be the best band in the area, but it's like, realistically,
have the coolest merch.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? That's I think that's more of the competition, is who's got the better merch than who's got better sound, which is I love, because I've interviewed bands from all over the world with our old podcast, and like, the collective thing was bands around the world don't work together. But our scene in the Vancouver scene, I find, are really tight. Mm-hmm. And same with the Alberta scene. Like, you see it online that they're very well.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's just, I wish that, pardon me, that our scenes could be more broadcasted.
Yeah.
I
Better
feel.
linked up.
Yeah, not even necessarily to each other, but just so that, like, bigger bands would want to come through and tour, and then, like, if bigger bands were to come through and play Penticton, Kelowna, Vernon, Kamloops, you got 4 right there, but it's just because they're small towns, most people don't really want to stop at them.
Yeah.
They don't realize,
Or
like,
they'll hit one of the 4.
one of the 4 instead of hitting, like, 1 or
Expect
2.
us to travel.
Yeah, and that's, like, the travel itself is not the issue. It's more, you're not going to get as many people out on specific days
Or
and
like the
specific
flavor
towns.
from each city too. 'Cause
Yeah.
each of those cities has different sound for their music for sure.
Yes, Penticton is very, like, punk rock and hard rock. Kelowna is very, like, as we all like to call it, caveman riffs. Where caveman
for
riffs is
sure.
just chug, chug,
Knuckle
chug.
dragging, yeah.
Vernon and, like, Armstrong is very, like, thrash
Like
and
hardcore.
old Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then Kamloops, you go back up there and it's like old Metallica.
Yeah, like the band we played with.
Yeah,
They're
so
crazy.
like it changes as you go. So if you really think about your diversity of music, you can bring a lot of bands through just in the
Absolutely.
Okanagan.
Yeah.
And that's not even talking about Oliver and Seas, because I don't really know their scene, because I don't think they have one. But they're right at the border.
Yeah,
So
I
it
heard
makes
so
sense to
much.
just like hop the border and call
Yeah.
them all the way up through the Okanagan and then travel. So
Yeah.
we do have a really beautiful area.
No kidding, dude. The drives,
And-
like I said, I've been here for 9 years. I still feel like a tourist. Like
Yeah.
BC is so beautiful, dude.
It's
crazy.
big drives, but they're gorgeous, and
Yeah.
it makes for a lot of really cool footage on the road.
No kidding. Yeah. Between just here to Alberta or even here to Vancouver or here up north, like it's just nuts.
Yeah.
So nice.
No, I definitely enjoy it. It's the most beautiful area on the planet, I feel.
It's so nice, yeah.
The older I get, the more I appreciate where we live.
Yeah.
Before, I always wanted to get out of here.
Yeah.
Vancouver was always like, I have to be in Vancouver as a musician. Pardon me, but
It's kind of crazy down there though.
it is.
Super busy.
It's extremely crazy down there. Especially, I can't imagine, like, the competition booking.
Dude,
Like,
yeah.
here's hard enough because we have no venues.
Yeah.
But down there with
the
many venues and, like, the levels of
so
venues.
many bands down there too.
So many, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Besides music, what other kind of hobbies do you have?
I like skateboarding a lot. I wish it translated to snowboarding because of, the mountains. We got Big White pretty close, but it did not. I've tried a couple times and I don't know, I can't figure it out. So, yeah, skateboarding is really big for me. I'm trying longboard pretty much anywhere I go here in town because it's small enough, like I can get there, save some money.
Yeah.
But it's also like, just again, the views too. Like, you're in a car, you're taking like a 10-minute drive to get somewhere, but it might take me like half an hour to board there, and I get to actually experience like everything. So that's fun. Love video games. Classic, of course. Grew up playing like Zelda and all that stuff, so definitely love that. And yeah, that's more or less kind of what I've been working on aside from music. Just those two things.
So you could pursue one of those as
Oh,
a career.
man.
Which one would have you chose?
Yeah.
Skateboarding or video games?
Well, that funny thing, video games. I don't know. I wish I could say both. I love skateboarding. I do wish I was better at it, but again, need more practice. So, had a lot more time again in high school. Same thing. Just I used to live down the street from a park. I'd go hit the park up at pretty much every day. If I wasn't doing that, I was playing video games. Never got overly like really good at one, but seeing like people playing whatever game now for like millions of dollars in cash prizes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, man, it's insane.
I should have just kept going, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, They always told me video games weren't going to make it. Video games and music.
Yeah, what now?
One of those was right.
Yeah. Parents are like, you're never going to make money on those video games.
Honestly, I think games are, like, I'm a gamer too, but like, I think that games have evolved in such a different sense now that people don't realize it's not just like platforms that we used to grow up with. There's some games in there that will like take your life.
Yeah, all the
forever because it's so like they're so fun.
Yeah.
And entertaining that like you can get lost in them for months if you don't know how to like moderate that.
Yeah,
and I've
put
guilty.
a lot of hours into like Skyrim. I can imagine you've done the same.
Oh man, many games. Like I don't even want to list them off. But yeah, like it's more than I think before, like when we were playing like Zelda and stuff. Like even Zelda was incredibly hard for its time.
Yeah.
But like more like the Mario or like
Donkey Kong's
like those kind of games are like they're meant to entertain you for like a little while.
Yeah, you'll get stuck on a puzzle, then you figure it out. And
but it's like the survival, open world survival kind of games that they have out there nowadays are just even first person shooter games, and the amount of money that goes into the gaming industry itself is insane.
Yeah, it's funny too with the games nowadays because like you could beat like the main story and then the game's like, congratulations, you've only played 10% of what we have to offer. And you're like,
it's like they're developed to lock you in forever. Just keep you going. Which is just definitely like that in itself is a really unique art, is like the developers.
But people love that though too.
Yeah.
So if the game's too short, they're going to complain about it, sort of thing. But if there's like a limitless supply of things that you can do and side quests and this and that, people are like, all right, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I find that's like a common theme too through musicians too, is like video games or fantasy type of things. Like a lot of people play D&D, and like growing up, a lot of my friends play D&D. Now, like realizing how many of them play it, and then growing up being like always had like this imagination that it was a dumb game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there was like you would never look into it because it just sounded weird.
Yeah, those guys are nerds.
Yeah, like but like when you actually look into what it is, it's like
fun.
It's so creative.
Yeah, I've done
it's like
little,
and it's been around
sessions.
for so long, right? It's insane. Or Warhammer, it's another one of my friends that like one of my buddies actually like explained Warhammer and showed me it, and I was like, okay, like now I get it. Going into like the comic book shops as a kid and seeing like grown adults buying them, I was always so confused.
Yeah.
But it's like I always thought it was just like figurines to put on. Like I didn't realize there was like
so much
a
more
whole
to
culture
it.
behind it, which is kind of like there's a lot of like that's one thing I wish I had gotten into more, or at least would like to get into more. At least knowledge-wise, is the other side of like board games, because there's like or card games, because there's so many. Like growing up as a Pokemon kid, you don't realize like how many other things there are out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it's a very small community.
Yeah.
But like the metal community is very open with D&D. Like you'll see like videos of D&D being played in the middle of mosh pits, and it's like one of my favorite things to see online.
We got stuck on the Coca-Cola coming back from Vancouver at a show, and we didn't really know what to do. We were just sitting there for like 4, 5, 6 hours just waiting. So we just did like a one-off campaign in the car.
Right?
Just pass the time.
Why not?
It was so fun, man. It was so fun.
Yeah. No, I find that it's kind of funny, those little things you do on the side. Your side quests as a band on tour, as you probably say. Like, there's many like really entertaining moments as a band, and then really there's many moments of stress like that where you're on the road, everything's going good, and all of a sudden tire blows, and you don't have a spare tire because you decided to take it out to put the spare snare in. So now you have no backup tire, but you got a spare snare in case it gets broken. Maybe you just buy a new head. Never experienced that before. No, there's a lot of funny moments as bands, and I think that being a musician is It takes a special breed to be a what I classify a musician as, like a person, a performer, an entertainer. It's there's a rare breed who are willing to put themselves through the amount of work, the amount of years, and they're all very humble. Like I find that you see the rock star ego for like big, massive bands.
They're
And I
actually
don't
all
think
really
that
nice, though,
there are
right?
a lot of them are really nice.
Yeah.
Like you've opened up for many bands.
Yeah.
Like give a list of some of your favorite bands that you've opened up for.
Well, number one I'd say would be Motionless in White. I met those guys behind the stage, and the band I was drumming for, Death Sentence. We did a Ghost Inside cover, and I guess that's like one of Chris Motionless's favorite bands. So he was like, "Dude, that was awesome." And I was like, "You're awesome!" Like, thanks,
Fanboying.
dude. Like, I appreciate that. Like, it was super humble. The whole band was like really nice. So they're cool to meet. Yeah, I mean, like the Counterparts guys, like Brendan's a really, really, really stand-up dude. Tons. I mean, a lot of the Ontario scene is all like that. They're just like super nice. Like, you wouldn't expect it. You see them on stage and you're like, those guys are kind of frightening. But like, no, we're all just a bunch of big baby boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's super nice. So, yeah, it's good.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I find it, that's like the funnest part of being a musician is like getting to meet other musicians and like the bonds that you create.
Yeah.
Especially like when you talk to them years down the road and you don't have like, you know, like you've made friendships and it connects and it stays. Because there's probably people you don't talk to daily, but when you see them because you've been in a band with them and you work musically, it's like nothing's changed. You know what I mean? It's just that bond will always be there. I find that's probably the coolest thing about being a touring artist.
Yeah, definitely. My sister, she was the tour manager for a bunch of really big bands, so I got to meet a lot of bands that way, and like every single one of them was just super nice. Like if they needed a place to stay, they could always come stay with us, and we've had big bands come and sleep over, like North Lane, and Stray from the Path kind of thing, and yeah, they're all just really great dudes. no, that's the funny thing too. Like it's I never try to flex that. Like that was just like they're just people. Like we're just chilling, you know. Like
no, it's so true.
Really chill, yeah.
And it's cool to meet them on that level because it's not like they're on stage.
Yeah, like I definitely appreciated the like ability to be able to do that and like go to the skate park with them, and just hang out, you know.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, just shoot the shit.
I'd be totally like nerve-wracked being on a skateboard in front of anyone.
Oh,
I'm terrible on a skateboard. I love skateboarding, but like I'm terrible at it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I definitely fell a couple times, but trying to do some crazy stuff. But you know, it was still fun. I was hanging out with Stray that day.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, what advice do you have if you were to? Let's start with this. If there was one thing that you could change within the music industry, what do you think it would be?
More venues for sure. Like the ease of access, especially with that. No merch cuts. Ridiculous. Y'all making enough.
Yeah, that's a hard one too. That's like I find that one's like morally wrong. Like you didn't buy the merch, so why do you get any cut of the merch?
Yeah.
That is a difficult one.
They make twice as much in drink sales than we do for merch, anyways, if not more.
Yeah, it's a weird one. That's really big in the States. I don't know if
Ontario has a couple places that
does
do
it.
that.
So that was like another difference between the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Like
we don't do that out here.
no, we don't. And not a lot of promoters are like, you have to sell X amount of tickets or you don't get the slot. It's like you just get asked.
Yep.
And you do. You know, the show goes. How's the show goes?
That's kind of really it, though. Everything else is not too bad. We just need more places to play, and I feel like the more that there is, the more opportunity there is for more shows, more bands will come through, and it just might steamroll that way, but just wishful thinking, you know?
It's a question I wanted to start bringing back when I'm talking with musicians, because it's one that I used on the podcast, and I always find it interesting to hear the answers. Because, like, when we started doing shows, I took all the answers from the podcast as a show promoter and took that advice that bands were like, I want this to be like that. And that's where Enigma, when we started putting shows on, why our shows were the way our shows were.
Yeah, they always went really
They were
well.
very accepting, and like, we didn't care if you were a new band.
Different
Or
genres.
if a different genre, like, we would switch it out, because that was the one thing that bands always said was like, and now it's changed, right? Like, that was coming out of the pandemic. Now it's we're a couple years out, and things have changed. So the scene, it still needs to, it's doing really well.
Definitely.
It really is. Like, the people who come out to the bands that are playing, to the venues that are open right now, it's doing really well. But it would be nice to see it thrive.
Yeah, it's not quite back to, I think, how it was before. Like,
I don't know if it
COVID
will.
and all that stuff. Even like Ontario, you see the same thing. Less people are going to shows unless it's like a big show. But before, it was almost the other way around. Like, big shows, sure, people are going to show up, but it was like those little house shows that would just fill up. Like, I get Death Sentence, we would have little house shows and just pay what you can. If you showed up empty-handed, if you showed up with, you know, canned food to be able to donate, we would take it and whatever, and we were just there to have some fun and have different people play in the basements.
I miss the house party days.
Dude, it wasn't even just trying to party. It was just like, let's get more bands
we don't have
here.
we just need shows.
Yeah.
So,
And it wasn't a lack for venue space either, because London, where I'm from, had so many places you could play. But I love those little basement shows, man. It was so fun.
yeah, I wish you could like bring them back, or like have a venue that was a basement.
Yeah,
just something like
that,
something
right?
that looks like a 15-year-old basement that a party would be at. That would be the coolest venue ever.
Yeah.
Nobody take my idea.
Patent pending.
Right? No, so what advice, because there are a lot of emerging bands coming out of the Okanagan, and being one of the top dogs behind the drum kit, as like, I'll hands down say you're probably one of the best drummers in the Okanagan. There's a top 10 easy.
Oh,
I don't know how to categorize it, but realistically, what advice would you give somebody who's trying to come up in our scene to break out even further?
100%, hands down, number one answer is going to be just putting in the time to practice. That is 100% it. Like, there's no way I could play the stuff that I can play if I wasn't just slaving behind the kit, trying to sort each piece out, or even times where I filled in for bands on like a tour and they're like, hey, can you learn our stuff in a couple weeks? And I'm like, okay, like, let me dissect it, play it a couple times, figure out what I'm struggling with, work on that, and just keep at it. So 100% it's got to be practicing. Just kind of telling yourself it's not going to be easy right away. You're not going to get it right away. But yeah, if you put in the time, like, you'd be surprised what you can do.
Yes.
100%.
It's very true.
Goes with any instrument too. Vocals, drums, guitar, anything. Like, you just got to put the time in.
Yeah, I think it goes for realistically anything that you want to be
Absolutely
successful at, because like, every artistic endeavor has its own challenges and unique traits and ways to go about, like, little shortcuts that you won't learn by yourself without making mistakes or asking.
Trial by fire, for sure.
Yeah, and like, painting's a prime example. Like, music might be a little more difficult to like visually put down as like how hard it is, but like, look up some sheet music. It's I don't understand that stuff at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like,
big into the tablature, but like looking at the tab and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I look at the notes right above it and I'm like,
there's a science.
it doesn't make any sense to me.
Like, it's not just music and hitting notes. Like, there's a whole science. Like, I would almost use like a whole spiritual aspect behind it.
Yeah, the feel for it, for sure.
Yeah, because
Get the vibes.
like, I'm not a I'm not a musician who knows how to read music. Like, I don't know theory. I don't understand it because I've never really, like, tried to learn it. But I feel like I'm at a point where, like, if I tried to learn it, it'd be, like, relearning everything. So I just kind of gave up on it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat for sure. Like I was saying, I just kind of did stuff until what I was hearing didn't suck. You know? I'm
That's exactly how I learned.
I don't know, maybe not that. Let me try something different, either on the kit or guitar or vocals or whatever, and just keep going until I'm like, yeah, that's a bit better.
Yeah, like I watch my friends who are like, oh, that's a G minor, or that's that. I don't know what
this scale, that scale.
That's an S chord to me, bro. I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, I know how to play guitar, I know how to play drums, but I've learned everything by ear.
Yeah.
Or by feel. Like, if it sounds or feels wrong, like, obviously it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the hardest thing to put down. Like, that's what I was trying to, like, say is, like, painting visually, you can see where you're messing up. And you can, oh, I messed that up, I can cover it up. But with music, it's kind of like...
on display,
and it's off, and you're like,
in
you know,
your head,
like...
you just hear, like, the crowd from Guitar Hero booing.
Yes, exactly, right? Like, at least painting, you can cover it up, but, like, constantly, like, especially on stage, making a mistake is, like, you literally just have to laugh it off.
Yep.
You're
like, nobody noticed, I swear.
Nobody noticed, I swear. Exactly, because, like, there's been countless times where I've messed up on stage. Just look over at Norm and start laughing because he knows, and he knows, you know, but at the end of the day, the crowd doesn't know because they're so locked into what they're hearing, what they're feeling.
That's a full sound, not just specifically, like, one thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part of, like, that intricacy of band members creating something. Like, yeah, one person can write it all, but at the end of the day, when it's like syncing up like a zipper, you know what I mean? And then it's just like it's beautiful.
Yeah, it comes together.
There's just a weird feeling. I wish I could describe it better, but I'm just not on a level mentally or like intellectually to like have a word that describes, like, I don't think there's a word in the English language to describe the beauty that music holds. Like,
especially as a group.
Yeah, like there's just like this weird, that's why I always try to like, it's the best way to describe it. It's a relationship. It's like having a relationship with like 5 bros and having a baby, and like it's a really terrible way to describe it, but like if you've had a kid, you know the love you have for the child.
Absolutely.
And that's like, that's the love you have for your band. It doesn't matter where it goes. You know what I mean? And I think like as a young musician, you're always so focused on, I want to be famous.
Yeah.
I want to be famous. I want to be famous. Like
really fast. Right now.
You gotta switch it to I want to be successful. You don't, like, fame comes with success. You can't just be famous without being successful, and you can't be successful without the work.
Yeah.
So like it takes. You don't, like, ask any band that has probably made it. They didn't get noticed for their first 10 years.
Yeah. Dude, even
Hands
like
down.
Parkway Drive, like they'd tour around in Australia and just play like shows to a couple people every once in a while.
They
and,
didn't get famous till their second singer.
Yeah, and a couple
You know what I
people
mean?
would show
Like,
up, and then years later they're doing the same thing and they're selling out shows now, and
it's just like,
you just gotta keep at it.
It's the work. It's
100%.
not worrying about how many people are at our show or like, oh, nobody showed up. It's not that. It's like, those are the lessons you're learning. You're not going to be able to get behind a car and drift without making some errors. You know, you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, we're big into drifting.
Yeah, and like that's another thing. Like, relating things. Like, I find that just like getting on the stage, getting to the point to be on the stage is the first battle. Doesn't matter what your band name is. Doesn't matter what your merch is. Doesn't matter what your logo is. Just getting to the stage to perform your songs to a point where you think it's going to be good enough for other people is hard enough.
Yeah.
To worry about being famous.
Yeah.
You know, just like baby steps.
Yeah.
It comes, like, if I would have been told that it takes 10 years minimum as a band to make it anywhere.
Like, figure it out.
If I would have been told that when I was 14, you know what I mean?
Like,
20 years ago, it would have been a lot different, because my mental state was always like, oh, this project isn't making it anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's going nowhere, I'm done.
Yeah.
Don't give up too early, because that is a hard thing too, right? Like, it's a lot of years. Some people will be in bands longer than they are in relationships.
That's true.
I have friends that have been in bands longer than their relationships.
Yeah.
And they're married. So, like, it takes time. One of my favorite bands of all time is coming to North America this year, coming up for the first time.
Who's that?
While She Sleeps.
Okay.
And I've been waiting for them. And they've been massive in Europe for a long time. Mm-hmm. To see them finally coming here, it took them easy 15 years to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And it takes dedication. It takes that time, that effort. Like, the saddest thing that I've seen in the Okanagan music scene is the death of so many amazing bands that could have been world famous and world like incredible names, just because they're stuck in this bubble.
Yeah.
Like, so many bands have come and gone because of that, and it's really sad, because like you see them, like other bands too, like emerging now with members from other bands that were like, when I was growing up, I was going to their shows.
Yeah, right.
So like Tidebringer with Kevin.
Yep.
To see Kevin on a guitar in a band again is like almost nostalgic for me. I'm like, what? Whoa. You know what I mean? Like, it's really cool because, like, right, it's full circle. Like, you're never too old. Like, he has so much skill. They just record, they put out music, and people hear it, they love it. Mm-hmm. That's what it takes. And
I feel like that with some of my other bands too. Like, I'm just looking back at the music we wrote for like its time. I'm like, wow, like, imagine what could happen if we were still going. You know? Like,
yeah, and
kept it going.
That's the saddest thing, I think, of being like a musician, realistically, is watching like your friends' bands go, or your bands go, and there are lessons learned, but like that's one thing that I want like the younger kids, the younger generation to know is like, don't expect it right away. I think it's the best advice any of us could give any other musician that is coming up.
Don't just give up if it's not working right away either.
No.
You gotta get through those.
You gotta make your mistakes.
You gotta play shows to 5 people a bunch of times, and then the big shows will come. As
Rob McLaren would say, you'll play, or like Rob always made a point to me, like, you'll play more shows to your friends who are in bands. So you're playing to other bands more than you are playing to fans when you build up.
Yeah.
And like the amount of shows I've played with Rob over the years, like I've played with many performances with Rob with DFY, and that's one of those bands that I wish would have made it is DFY, just because such a unique style. It was heavy, it was beautiful, it was intricate, it was art.
Yeah.
And just same with Lakeman, another one of his projects. You know what I mean? Like, such amazing bands. And it is nice to see like the top dogs too, like the Unending coming out of a hiatus.
Yeah.
And PK dropping a new album. And just there's a lot happening, and I think that there was like a huge push after the pandemic to like shows. We got to do shows. Then none of us really focused on like, we were so focused on writing for so many years that performing became like, we hyper focused on performing, and then all of a sudden it just went and everyone was silent for a while.
Yeah.
And it was like these kind of new bands came up, and like there's some new great bands that have come out since that little divot in the music is like Idio Fame. Love them. I've gotten to hear a couple of their things from like their reels, and I dig it. Yeah, and Jude's an amazing drummer. Yeah. He's the drummer for Floodgate, and Floodgate's another one that just hands down, like,
that guy's insane behind the kit.
If there's any band in the Okanagan to keep an eye on in the next 10 years, it's Floodgate.
Absolutely.
Those boys are insane.
Yeah.
Like, all of them. I love them all. They're such genuine musicians, genuine kids. But yeah, I think that like having you on is nice, and to like getting to hear your perspective on the scene, because as we were talking about before, like, yeah, it's changed, and you've come from a massive scene that's established, that has the biggest shows coming through where you guys are actually getting asked to open for them. It's not like they're getting put at Prospera and there's like an opening act that's touring with them. Like, you're getting to open for those acts in small bar venues out there where they don't do that out here. So it's like, it's nice to hear the difference between the scenes, a drummer's perspective, because most people, like, realistically, drummers and bassists are very underrated and don't get a lot of
they don't
praise.
get as much love as they should, for sure.
No, and I think drummers are, like, realistically, drummers are probably the most important member of a band.
Yeah, I'm keeping the time, you know.
Not just that, hardest member to find. Hardest member to find a good one. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of drummers out there.
I've been trying to switch to guitar and Planetkiller and just like trying to find someone who wants to or can.
Who can? That's the prime word.
I'm sure
there's a lot of people who would probably want to, but be able to pull off what you do without breaking a back.
Yeah.
No, it's a difficult. You have. You're mad behind a drum kit, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like, you don't get to hear the drummer's perspective a lot, which is a weird thing. But it's usually singers and guitar players who are like credited for the bands because
being the face of the bands,
being the face, and because they make the melodies. But realistically, like, no one really wants to watch a guitar player and a singer standing on stage by themselves. You don't dance to that. You dance to the rhythm, which is drums
and bass.
So it's drummers are especially here, a rare breed. So it's nice to hear a drummer's perspective, especially from, like I said, you've come a long way.
Yeah.
And I don't think that our scene knows a lot about that, because like we're introverts, because we're musicians and artists, and
very true.
Yeah,
bunch of nerds playing some video games. If we want to talk, we're gonna hop on Discord,
basically,
and get in the voice chat, you know?
Right? That's how musicians hang out nowadays. Is Discord.
Hit me up on party chat.
Yeah. Bands don't even want to hang out anymore. We're just like, we just jam online.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's definitely funny, but is there anything any notes, anything you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, we've covered a lot. One other point with the video game thing, I think, as well, though, is the music behind a lot of the games that I grew up playing is, I think, what drew me more to them than, like, the gameplay itself.
Like the music that's in the games.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I've got a song from Zelda tattooed on my arm. Just
right.
Like, that melody stuck with me for so long. And
yeah, that's cool. That's actually a unique point, too, because, like, we'll be interviewing Alex, and I really want to dive into Alex's podcasting, because, like, producing podcasts to me is, like, what?
He's like, super efficient,
sought after,
like,
and he's
quick.
great at what he does, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't really think about, like, the games, music in games, and, like, who's producing it, because it's still, like, a background.
Yeah, people are just like, AB, like...
Yeah, like, you're so focused on the game.
Yeah, right.
Right? And that's, like, another thing, like, I'm going to be interviewing Reese Colley, and he's an actor, and I want to see if he's ever, like, I want to dive into, like, the topic of voice acting and video game acting. And, like, there's so much opportunities as an actor nowadays, and it's just, like, there's so many, like, I would love to write scores for video games, or, like...
Dude, voice acting, something I've always wanted to do myself, too. It's, like, a hidden thing.
Right?
Like,
or why not?
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's, like, it's such a cool thing. Or, like, writing guitar riffs for, like, jingles. Like, there's so many things you can do with music that I don't think that there's like so much opportunity as a musician. I think that we definitely just get stuck with blinders, just like
seeing
that
what we see.
Fame. It's like a success.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that would suck without music, that is for sure.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as good for sure.
Honestly, like, I'm trying to think of what the game was. Twisted Metal, maybe?
Oh, Twisted Metal,
And,
fantastic.
like, the music in it was, like, I
Yeah.
always was drawn to heavy music.
Yeah.
So, like, to be a heavy metal musician isn't really a surprise. But, like, I think some of my favorite games have metal in it. Like, growing up, like, with Duke Nukem and Doom. And, like, that's what I grew up playing.
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
that music in the background, like, I can't remember who wrote it, but, like, it's metal.
Some crazy
It's
bands,
heavy,
for sure.
especially for the time that it came out. So, like, growing up, playing those games, probably shouldn't have been playing those games. Now I think about it. I'm way too young now that I think about them. It was terrible. But, like,
Just blowing
yeah,
stuff up.
no, it's true. I still have, like, there's games, music that I'm obsessed with still to this day. I've never actually thought about that.
Dude, there's always little jingles playing in my head from like either movies I've seen or games that I've played like all the time. Especially Pokemon and Zelda related, like all the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can catch myself singing the Pokemon theme song. Like,
Yeah, or like the
Quite frequently.
Lugia's song from that movie as well.
Yeah.
Always stuck in my head, the little flute melody.
Yeah.
So good, dude.
No,
so
it's
good.
true. Awesome. Well,
Yeah, man.
I want to thank you for being on,
Thanks for having me.
and we'll see you guys next time.
Catch you later.